Hello, people. Oh, there's no people on right now. Two people on. Now just one. I know this was a spur of the moment thing, so people don't know we're here or that I was going to be on. But something came up and I wanted to discuss it. Six people here now. For the 7 people that are here, my name is Jax West. And I am not family or connected to the family. I am just a supporter. And I talk to Steven, but only occasionally. Sorry, I'm reading a screenshot of something else that is the purpose of why I came on today. So what has happened, and I'm going to be general in it. I know there's a lot of you here who you're new to the whole Making a Murderer world. So you don't know a lot of the drama that transpired when part 1 came out. And quite frankly, I don't want to rehash all the drama. I know this is a gossip group. But I would rather talk about the case and things pertinent to the case. But something that I have been made aware of today is that I don't even know how I want to word all this to try and just be general about it. You know that I personally am against all these millions of different fundraisers. Okay. I personally don't think that people, even family, should be profiting off of Steven and Brendan being in prison. And that if people want to help, you should be helping Steven and Brendan, period. There is a certain family member. I'll just, Carla Chase, who is Steven's niece and Brendan's cousin, who, when Making a Murderer came out, she gave herself the title of family spokesperson, even though nobody asked her to speak for anybody. She just threw that in there. She likes the attention, and she has a lot of friends who are guilters, which she'll always play the martyr and say that, she gives them a chance and blah, 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 whatever. Well, a lot of these guilters are admins or have been admins of her family fan group. So what I'm being shown today is that another alleged supporter of Steven's has been doing some kind of supporter bags that they were selling. And it turns out one of Carla's guilter friends has a company who makes them. So these supporter bags are being sold and the profit is going to guilters. So maybe it's a load of bullshit, you know, because the guilters right now are having all kinds of fun of making fun of supporters who would donate to any of these fundraisers, that they have made their own phony fundraisers about the whole thing. So maybe these posts I'm being sent with this discussion is just something so they can laugh at us that that we give it any light. But it's something that I again just want to put out there to people. I appreciate that there's so many people out there that want to help this family, that you watch this documentary and it stirred something in you and you want to help. But the only place you can give your money that it truly helps is either just going directly to Stephen's commissary or give it to Kathleen. That's it. I'm sorry. And this stuff is all just getting ridiculous with this money bullshit. So, and maybe you don't care. Maybe all you want is, you know, you're desperate to have something that says Steven Avery on it. So you don't care that the money that you're spending is going to go towards a guilter's company. Maybe that you're fine with that. Maybe you're fine with money going to Steven's extended family who told the press he was guilty and wouldn't go visit him until Making a Murderer came out and became a success, and then all of a sudden they showed up at that prison to go see him again. So it just it really appalls. I'm disgusted by so many people that want to take advantage, whether or not, and I know people will say, like in Carla's case, she's family. Yeah, well, this family didn't go visit Steven or Brendan ever until Making a Murderer came out. So think of your own family. Just because they're family, does it mean that they always have everybody in the family's best interest at heart? No, they don't. So I just get so tired of all these different money scams. Even like there's people on YouTube that they're doing the same thing like I'm doing right now, talking to the camera and saying something about the case. But the difference between when I talk to you here and when they do it on YouTube, they're doing it on YouTube to make money off of it. And I was shown one idiot, he's taking donations from supporters because he talks to you about Making a Murderer. Are you kidding me? And he's going to hire a researcher or some shit. This is all just crazy. You know, there's so many better things you can do with your money. So I just wanted to go live today to discuss yet now another thing of a supporter group doing these supporter bags on Steven, but the company that's making that stuff is owned by a guilter who is a friend of Carla's and used to be an admin. And the post I'm being shown today is this person saying, due to her time as an admin and the things that she learned from Carla is what has made her a guilter. So who knows what Carla was saying about Steven to her? All right, so that's enough of my rant on that right now. I haven't scrolled through anything that's been said. So I'll see what anybody has to say on that, if anything at all. Isaac says, Steven had his cell raided and letters taken. Any idea why? I saw that post. there are rules. So I know people want to look at like Stephen's being mistreated on that, but he's not. There are rules that you're only allowed X amount of letters in your cell at one time. And if you go over that, you have to, pay to send those letters home. That's always been the case. It's just going to be prior to part 2 coming out, Stephen wasn't getting the volume of letters that he is now. So the prison saying he has to send his letters, that's not him being picked on. That is just the rule. And it's also a safety issue. Other inmates see you getting special treatment. How come I can't have all the letters in my cell? And how come Superstar over here does? So it puts him in danger if he was getting special treatment. So that's the rule. You can only have 25 letters or whatever it is in your cell at one time. And yeah, that sucks that he doesn't get to read all of his letters. And it, sucks for the people who are writing him those letters, because you don't know if he gets them or not, because he also doesn't really write to many people back. So you're never going to know if he got your letters. But if you're writing Stephen a letter and you're a true supporter, you're doing it because you just want to brighten Stephen's day, not because you want a letter back because, you want to collect like some kind of memorabilia or have his signature or something like that. So just continue writing him the letters, not knowing if he's getting them or not, because you're doing it for the greater good, that you just want to, hopefully, if that letter gets to Stephen, it's going to brighten his day. But no, he's not being picked on or anything like that. That's just, it's the rule. And we've always known that. Okay, and there's people that are answering that. Demi says, that's the part that sucks. I want one of those Avery Salvage Yard sweaters so badly, and I want that money to go straight to Stephen's parents, and now I can't trust anyone. Well, here's what I'll say on that. The one salvage thing that we shared once upon a time, the owner of that print company keeps telling us, because they have messages to Steven Avery Project, and they want everybody to know that money is going directly to Al. But see, Earl is also being listed on that as well. And Earl is now working with Carla in all these fundraisers. So even though the last time I talked to Stephen, he had said, Stephen had told me Carla is to have no contact with any money, and that money was going to be going through Earl, and he was okay with that. But now that I see Earl and Carla are working together, that's why I will not promote those Salvage Yard shirts any longer. And I get you wanting Avery Salvage Yard shirt. I get it. But I still just go, just put your money in Stephen's canteen or give it to Kathleen. Those are really the only two things that are not being corrupted. So, and then maybe once Stephen is free and he can control himself on what's going on family-wise, then get something Avery Salvage Yard. But until then, you just, just be leery. Christy says, I say save your money until Stephen gets out. That's when he's going to need the money the most. Just my 2 cents. True. Lorraine says, Christy, good suggestion. I wish I could help Ma and Pa Avery more, but with other people dipping into that fund, it's hard to help them. I know. I mean, the one good thing from this is Carla knows how beloved Dolores is. So Dolores is benefiting from this right now. Carla, she keeps posting pictures of, here's, what I did in Dolores's bathroom. And so Dolores is getting some things. So that is good. But other people are benefiting from these things as well. I know somebody on here at one time talked about that they ordered stuff at Walmart to go directly to Dolores. That would be the only other possible thing I would tell you to do, is just donate stuff straight to Dolores. You know, so because another thing Carla's doing is having people send stuff to her house. And of course, she's claiming she's going to wrap it up and blah, blah, blah. There's going to be no accounting of any of that, just like when they had an auction a couple of years ago, that to this day, people still haven't received their items that they paid for at that auction. Still gone. Stuff is gone. And Carla paid herself first before she divided up any money to divide between Stephen and Brendan. So the same thing's going to go with all these Amazon wish lists and all this other bullshit of stuff. If it's going through Carla first, she's going to take a cut. So yes, Dolores is still going to benefit. So that's great. And Al is still going to benefit. That's great. But still, she's taking a cut. So that's a, you know, I'm not the boss of any of y'all. So, you know, you want to do the salvage shirts, or you want to do the, you know, send stuff to Carla in hopes that Dolores gets it. That's your right to do whatever you want to do. And trust me, it bums me out too, because I really would like Dolores helped. You know, I've gone up there and visited her before and handed her cash. I have sent clothes to her before. And if you watch Making a Murderer Part 2, when you see Dolores talking in her kitchen, and they even at one point, they zoom in on this flower that's on her windowsill. I bought that for her for Mother's Day one year. So it's one of those solar things that, you know, when the sun is hitting it, the petals move up and down and stuff. So but I brought stuff directly to Dolores. But also when I would see Dolores, that was back when Carla didn't care about her grandmother and didn't see her. Now, since Making a Murderer 2 came out, and, you know, she's not on Stephen's visitors list, she knows Dolores is the one to, you know, have for FaceTime to keep her having fans. So, yeah. So, like I said, so we've discussed all that stuff before, and the new one is these supporter bags that some group was selling or whatever. It's actually made by Guilters, and Guilters are making that money, allegedly, unless the screenshots I'm being sent of Guilters discussing it are just lying about it to get us all crazy. Demi says, yep, save your money for Stephen when he is free. That's when he and his parents will need it the most. Brendan, I'd still give it to Stephen to give to Brendan. I trust Stephen the most. Ethan says, do you think it's because he wants to see MAM2 scripts? Who wants to see MAM2 scripts? Sorry, Ethan. You know, since I was rambling on forever, I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Renee says, oh, Stephen in his letters. That's what you're discussing. No, Ethan, it's because it's just the rule. You can only have X amount in your cell at a time. That's just, there's no conspiracy. There's no trying to keep anything from him. There's no targeting him. It's just the rule. Renee says he is allowed only so much money in his canteen. I think it's $50. So what happens when it goes over that? I've never heard that, Renee, that there's a limit. So I know I've talked about before, especially when talking about Brendan, it's you don't want to put too much in their canteen at one time because other inmates can manipulate it and steal it. And that has been done to Brendan before, that another inmate got his commissary money. I don't know if that has happened to Stephen. So that's another reason why I have said in the past, if you give it to Kathleen, they just tell Kathleen when they need money. Because I also, another one of her cases, Melissa Kaluzinski, I've talked about this before, but that's what happens with Melissa, is when Melissa needs money in her commissary, she lets Kathleen know and Kathleen puts it in there. But she can't always get a hold of Kathleen right away, and the money doesn't get there. So there are times that, like, there was a time that another inmate hit Melissa and it broke her glasses, and she needed new glasses. So then that was something she called her parents, and then her parents organized to get her new glasses and get them to the prison. So, but I don't know about a $50 limit. I've never heard that before. And you could be right. I'm not the expert on that. Ashley says, damn, I'm glad I held off on buying ASY stuff because I had a gut feeling it wasn't going to go directly to mom and pop. Shady, shady, shady. According to the, and I don't, that woman is in this group. I can't remember her name. She claims the checks are being written right out to Alan. But did she say Chuck also? And again, or not Chuck, Earl. But since Earl now is working with Carla, I can't trust it. You know, if money goes to Alan and then he says he wants to give it all to Carla, then that's his right to do. But I'd prefer money always go to Al or Dolores first and nobody else have any contact with it. Like when you see the one thing of this is Dolores's PayPal, she doesn't have internet. Somebody just made an email account using Dolores's name and made it a PayPal account. So again, that's going to go through somebody else first before it gets to Dolores. So don't do that. Renee says, how is Dolores's health? As far as I know, doing okay. I haven't talked to her. Ethan says, so there's nowhere to get an Avery shirt that will go to Al and Dolores. Well, they're claiming those salvage shirts do go to Al, but as I keep saying, there are other people that are putting their little mitts in the way. So, buyer beware. Or if you're that desperate to have an Avery shirt, buy the shirt so you have it, knowing that money isn't going to the parents, and then put money in Stephen's commissary. Sorry, people were responding, people saying hello. Christy says, I received a screenshot of one of the shopping registry the other day. There have been some things added to that list that are in no way for Alan Avery. I feel like CC is adding stuff to that list for her husband or others. Well, let me just tell you, when they did this camp out fundraiser or auction thing, and I was part of the original organizing of that event, we were dividing up the different things that were going to be happening in this camp out and who's responsible for this and who's responsible for that. So like one of the things I was assigned was all the paper products. Carla said she was going to get the meat. And then this person said they were going to get the bread, you know, that kind of stuff. Well, when you're doing a fundraiser, you know, going into it, being the organizing person, that I'm going to buy these things. And that's like my donation, a contribution to this thing. So what Carla ended up doing is she then took all the money for all the stuff that she bought. So, like she bought tons of cases of pop and all this stuff that then she got to benefit off of, that she kept for her family. And then the money that came in, because you were supposed to pay X amount, hey, knock it off. Because of course my dogs, even though I put them out right before I do this, are now begging to go outside. People were paying money to be at this camp out, and then there were all these auction items. They took a cut. her and her minions, and the reason I call them minions too is because they get so upset when I call them minions. Even one of them just a couple of weeks ago messaged me again, I am not a minion, I have my own voice, don't call me a minion. You're a minion, you're following what Carla tells you to do, you're a minion. They all got a cut of that money first, and then they gave some money for Steven, and I believe they gave Barb like $200 to be Brendan's portion. It was like $200 or $300. Barb was livid because at the time when this happened, Barb and Carla hated each other. So, and I know Carla likes to try and use, she kind of blames me and others, saying we caused Barb not to like Carla. No. Oh boy, the stuff that Barb has told me about Carla. And Carla's told me about Barb. Those two women do not like each other whatsoever. And so now they just do a thing of bond together for whatever it is that they're doing here. So she did it the last time. And this time, so when they're doing these fundraisers saying, oh, this is to have a good Christmas, you watch. Wait till those pictures come out, which we won't be posting here. I know people have submitted things of, Carla's pictures of proof that stuff is getting to Dolores. We're not posting those either. They're going to be Carla's minions that are going to be there. So supporters are paying for Carla to have a party with her friends. And then she'll have Dolores there as a prop and take a picture of Dolores not wanting to be there whatsoever. That Dolores would rather just be at her own house in quiet or up in Crivets. Ashley says, did y'all see the post where someone was organizing paying for a vacation for Carla? Yeah, and Carla's been doing this since the start. There was a fundraiser for her during MAM1 for her to go to a spa. For what? Being on social media. What we're doing right now, Carla thinks people should pay her for. Why? And the number stuff is all bullshit. But when you look at Stephen Avery Project, what do we have on Stephen Avery Project? 174,000 people. Let me click on it over here. Sorry. What do we have? Come on, come up. We have 177,899 people like the page and 177,705 follow it. So as I've said before, Stephen Avery Project has more people than every other Making a Murderer group combined. All the Guilter groups, all the family fan groups, we have more people. It doesn't mean dick. Nobody needs to give money to me and the moderators here for the work we do on these pages. We do it because we want to. That all of us feel very strongly that Stephen and Brendan are innocent. And so we run these pages in these groups for that, not to make money. You don't see anything on here that we ask you for money ever. I am going to be pushing to raise money for Melissa Kaluzinski's family. I'll be doing that shortly because that's a good family. And that money they use goes strictly to helping her parents, her elderly, and Paul is disabled. Her father, Paul, is disabled. Go to visit Melissa, and the money goes in her canteen. I know it. And so that's a family I'm happy to help. I would be doing the same thing with the Avery family if they weren't so shady and corrupt. But so Stephen Avery Project with the most people. I know when we listed the Avery Salvage Yard merchandise, their sales skyrocketed because we pushed it, because we have the audience, and I'm going to sound conceited, but we have power. So if I wanted to make money, I could be hand over fist. My boyfriend owns a print shop. I could be printing all this shit, and selling it. You know, it's hardly any cost to me because my boyfriend owns a print shop. You know, so if I want to do it, I don't have to pay for labor. You know, and he has the access where he can buy the shirts that are cheaper and all that. So have you seen me? There's Paul Kaluzinski calling. I will call you back. I'm on a live right now. Oh, why? What about tickets? Did you get them? It's Thursday? Okay. Yeah, I'll call you when I'm done. Okay. All right. I'll drive. Okay. All right, bye. So speaking of Kaluzinski, that was Paul Kaluzinski, and it's Kathleen Zellner is going to be on a local talk show this Thursday here in Chicago. It's called Windy City Live, and it airs here in the Chicago area at 1 p.m. It's an ABC channel. I tried to get tickets, and now Paul, I guess, reached out to people he knows, and he just got us tickets. So I have to call him when we're done with this, because then he's like, you have to drive though. So Paul and I will be going to see Kathleen on Thursday. We'll be sitting in the audience. Yay, yay. And then I'll report to you guys on how that went. So where was I again? Oh, so again, I could be making money hand over fist from you guys. I could be making Avery Salvage shirts if I wanted to, because even that logo, my boyfriend designed that, because back when I was friends with Carla and I went up there, and I posted this video recently. We had been up there once before, my boyfriend owning a print shop. He saw their sign, because it was a crude handwritten sign by Chuck. Here, let me show you. Pause, please, and I'll let my dogs out. It was this sign. See? No trespassing, private drive, and property. Chuck Avery. All right. So that's a handwritten sign that Chuck made. That was down by the mailboxes, which is also the bus stop. So Chuck had that crude sign, and my boyfriend, who owns a print shop, he's like, oh God, you know. And also, when we had been in the office, Jeff, my boyfriend Jeff, had looked at, and hold on, I have this too, I think. Had looked at their business cards for the salvage yard. Can I get this so you can see it? Okay. So my boyfriend saw that, the business card and that sign, and he's like, oh, those are horrible. You know, he's a perfectionist. And so when we went up the next time, my boyfriend surprised him and made him a real sign that says the private property part, and he actually made him 2 signs, and then he made him new business cards for him and for Chuck and Earl. And so the video I posted is when we surprised Chuck and had him open up the signs. And then you would also see in that video that Barb is holding this long box. Those were the business cards. So, and then not that long ago, Earl called my boyfriend And I guess they were out of the cards that my boyfriend had made for them and gave to them for free 2 years ago or whenever it was, and asked for more cards. So again, I could print Avery salvage stuff like that. No big deal. But I don't. Because, because it's not about the money. Or I suppose I could talk to Kathleen about it and ask her if I could make the shirts and the money just go directly to her. But see, I know she doesn't want to touch any of this shit. She's concentrating on freeing Steven. She doesn't want to deal with all this bullshit drama, fundraiser, this one's stealing money, that one's stealing money. All right, let me go back to reading your stuff. Christy says, no way Ellen is wearing extra large bikini type underwear. Are you kidding me, Christy? That's really on there. If that's on there, okay, I'm going to just go to the next person. Ellen says, there's been checks pictured with Al and Dolores regarding t-shirts. Obviously, they can't make the t-shirts themselves, so have to have someone make them. Al and Dolores are then given a percentage share. Yeah, and I get that, Ellen, because I have done that before. We did have shirts that we sold on behalf of Brendan back when the group, the page that I admin, Free Brendan, at one time was Brendan's official page. So we sold shirts through Injustice Anywhere. Injustice Anywhere is the organization that actually owns the Free Brendan Facebook page as well as freebrendan.org. And then our Twitter is Free Brendan Now. So yes. Well, what we did when we were making the shirts is my boyfriend wasn't making any money on it at all. He was taking back his cost. And then, so everything else went to Brendan. But that's not what this print shop is doing with these shirts. And I'm not holding it against them at all. But yeah, that print shop is taking a percentage of the profit, and then a percentage of the profit goes to Al and Dolores. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually something when I do sell these shirts that I'm going to do to help the Kaluzinski family. Jeff is going to get a cut this time because he is so sick of, he's done all these different shirts for us over these past few years. And he and I are constantly called thieves every time we do it. That's another reason why I never do it, because that's what the family always jumps to, is saying I stole money. These people went so far as they contacted the Illinois Attorney General's office and my local police department to say that I stole the shirt money. And so it's been completely investigated, including I gave them, because I have Stephen Drizzen's cell phone number, and so I had them call Drizzen. So it was shown that I did not steal any money, but still to this day, they will post and say I stole money, even though they went through those lengths of contacting my Attorney General's office and police department. So it's ridiculous. All right, next one. I've been talking for 39 minutes. All right. Amanda, what do you think about Brendan's mother, Barb? Barb knows something. What she knows and when she knew it, I don't know. I do not think Barb is a part of any plot to kill Teresa. I don't think Barb is part of any plot to frame Steven. I don't think Barb is part of any plot to put Brendan in there intentionally. I think she tries not to know things because she doesn't want to know. So, but she has to suspect. Julie says, just got here. The only reason someone wants a $50 limit is if they owe court fees. Anything over 50 goes towards their court fees. Ah, interesting. Thank you, Julie. Janet says, did Lenk have Scott's mobile home towed away back in 2005 when the cops were searching Stephen's place? I don't know. There's a whole lot of, what happened with Scott's trailer, and didn't it burn? I don't know. Jamie says, I think it says a lot that Cece isn't even on Stephen's visitation list. She's been on and off, just like with Brendan. She was on and Brendan kicked her off, and now she's back on. I wouldn't be surprised if she weasels her way back onto Stephen's now, because, Stephen loves his mom, and for her to be doing anything nice for Dolores will help her get back in Stephen's good graces. And she also knows that Stephen is a bottom line, family is family. So, so Stephen has told me he knows that she steals money and knows about other things that she's been doing, but she's family. So she's going to manipulate it. So don't be surprised if you see pictures of Carla with Stevens sometime soon. Alan says, where do you get your info from, and why should we believe you over someone else? Everyone seems to be getting involved one way or another, getting difficult who to believe and who not to be honest. What information are you asking me about? Where do I get the information I have? Because I was there and I know. So if you don't believe me, Alan, well, then I'm going to guess this isn't a group for you. No hard feelings. I don't expect everybody to like me or believe me. So if you don't believe me, yeah, there's plenty of other groups out there. Maybe they're a better fit for you. And happy Thanksgiving to you, Greg. Julie says, what's your take on the info regarding the RAV4 and its wild ride to the crime lab in Madison? It's all nuts. I just say that over and over again. I don't know what else to say on things. It's all crazy. On it, going there in the middle of the night, and and that it's locked and the battery's disabled. And I don't know. And Christy, your post cracks me up because Christy is a moderator for Gossip. And she says, speak for yourself. I want my Red Lobster dinner. Lori says, I thought Carla set up the Christmas page and the fun page because us followers ask her to. Seems she's doing a lot of work for Ma and Pa Avery. Seems to me that Carla has a big heart. Yeah, well then, Carla, how do I want to word that? It worked on you. So, Lori, again, maybe then this isn't the page for you, because we here believe that Carla has no heart. And she's not doing a whole lot of work for Dolores. Going there and setting some boxes down is not helping her. What is she doing for Pa Avery? He doesn't even live there. He lives in Crivets. So, no, Carla has no heart. Everybody always talks about this thing on my window. And see, I'm really bad at doing this. Lily says, the truth has a ring to it, and I hear that ring more with Stephen Avery Project than the other groups. Well, thank you for saying that, Lily. We here at Stephen Avery Project do just what Stephen always says. we're following where the evidence goes. So, and that's also why we have the different pages. Stephen Avery Project page, the public page with the 177,000 people, that just talks about the case. So all this stuff that I'm discussing right here now with you, we don't discuss that on Stephen Avery Project. We only do it here. This group is called Gossip. So it's more open to discuss anything. Miley says that pic on the window looks like the happy little clowns guy. Greg says, will KZ ever get to study the RAV4? Because I heard they won't let her. Who owns the car now? The car is in storage. I do not know why they do not give her her chance to look at it. That makes no sense to me. You know, she should be able to do her own testing on the car. It's not like she's already addressed that the blood in the car, there's nothing she can do with that blood that's in the car. So the testing wouldn't involve that at all. She wants that broken light. That's what she wants to look at. So it's not like a lab sample that there's only X amount there. So, you know, there's not enough to go around, even though it should. You know, you should be able to have your defense do all their own independent testing, especially when you know everybody that's involved on the state side have been a part of framing Stephen before. And I'm not just talking this case, you're talking the Penny Bernston case, because Sherry Culhane, the lab chick, is the one that identified a hair as being Stephen's in that. And then when she's contacted the years later of run this test, now that DNA has come around, she put it off forever because, you know, of course they didn't want to free him. So you absolutely should be able to run your own independent testing on everything because they've been shown suspect. Caroline says to Lori, I donated because I thought they had Stephen and Brendan best interests at heart. I was devastated. Admin were defending and shielding suspects. The boys should be going to talk to Kathleen, period. Well, Caroline, that is another point that people have made, and I agree with that. The family are shielding a murderer because the evidence points to Bobby, right? So the people who are collecting all this money now are purposely supporting and defending and hiding Bobby Dassey. And in doing so, you keep Stephen and Brendan in prison for something they didn't do. So why are you going to give those people money who are hiding the real killer, who are covering for the real killer? Why don't Scott and Bobby talk to Kathleen? You know, Barb makes these posts saying that Scott and Bobby lied, that they had to because, you know, the law enforcement made them lie. Now Paul's telling me don't say anything to anyone, okay? So you didn't hear anything. What was I saying now? Because now Paul's making me laugh about don't say anything to anyone. Why wouldn't they go to Kathleen and go tell her, they made me say that. They made me say that the fire was this high. They made me say that we passed each other so we could zero in on a time. If they were truly innocent, why wouldn't you run, not walk to Kathleen? Instead, you refuse to talk to her. Barb calls her that bitch. The only person who could free her son, she refers to as that bitch. If you believe that Scott and Bobby are innocent, why aren't they talking to Kathleen? Kathleen's only going where the evidence goes. So if you can explain why Bobby said he was at work when he wasn't, he lied and went into work late, Why did Bobby lie and say he went this way, but his phone is pinging off of this way? Why is Bobby lying and saying he saw Teresa walking towards the trailer when he didn't, when he actually saw her leave the salvage yard? Why isn't he going to Kathleen and say all this stuff to her? So again, looks very suspicious. And again, the family collecting money are people who are shielding Bobby and defending him, and are saying things like Carla will say, and Barb, try and make it out like it was Stephen who went into Barb's trailer and looked up that porn on Bobby's computer. But the money that people want to go to help Stephen should go to these people who are then saying that Stephen had the opportunity and could have looked up this porn on Barb's computer. You're supposed to give them money because they're family. So that's an excellent point, Caroline. Katie says, Lori, it was more the checks. She had the names blurred, the payee name, and a few people were wondering why. Well, the people from the print shop claim that it was their name that was blurred out, not Al or Earl's. But I never looked at the picture myself to see what was on there because I just don't care. I don't trust any of it. If it was going to Ma and Pa, why hide it? We know their names. We were worried it had someone else's name. Carla has a history of theft. She said in a post of 18 years ago, someone found one for 3 years ago. That was me who posted that. But Carla keeps saying it was accidental, and for face washers she accidentally put in her pocket. No, it was retail theft from a clothing store, and it was on Black Friday, November of 2015. And Making a Murderer came out just a couple weeks later from that. So it was Black Friday. She was stealing clothes. I don't know if it was Christmas presents or for herself. And then Making a Murderer came out mid-December. And then she went and saw Stephen for the first time on Christmas in prison after Making a Murderer had come out. So it was not 18 years ago. It was right before Making a Murderer came out that her retail theft. And it was $300 and something, which, whatever. You know, I don't know. I don't get why she would lie, because anybody can look that stuff up. It's just dumb. You know, but her doing that retail theft doesn't automatically mean that, you know, she's stealing money from the family. You know, just like when people want to talk about the whole cat incident, the burning the cat incident with Stephen, just because whatever part he had in the burning of the cat, which I'm an animal lover and I kill nothing. And that whole cat incident, everybody who was a part of that, Stephen including, that was fucking bullshit. And I don't like it at all. But regardless of whatever Stephen's part is in that, it doesn't mean that he would kill a person. One doesn't equal the other. And the same thing would go with Carla with her retail theft and all this stuff. But she sure likes to point fingers and call everybody else thieves or point out everybody else records like she just did to Brad the other day to discuss Brad's history when you have your own. And anybody, you can look up Wisconsin criminal records. They're public. Every single person in the Avery family, Carla's husband, Carla's son, they all have some kind of a record. They're all on there. The only person that when I look up that isn't on there is Dolores. There's nothing for Dolores at all. Everybody else has something. And I was discussing this with people just the other day. I am the oldest of 5 kids. Not a single one of us has ever been arrested. Things happen. people get arrested. I get it, but it's just like, oh my God, this family, every single person has not just one thing. There's a page for all these people, you know? So it's really dumb of Carla to be pointing her finger at people when she's got her own stuff going on there. Scrolling down, people talking to each other. Katie says, can the checks from the merchandise be sent direct to Kathleen? Kathleen wants no part of that. She, you know, so no, the money for the merchandise cannot be sent to Kathleen. One thing I did ask Kathleen to do is, because a lot of people had problems with donating on her page because it said it goes to legal defense and people don't want to give to legal defense. And I said, if you just change the wording on there for his commissary, you know, that would help. So she does have a list on there, or the same things that we have listed here in the pinned post on how you can give money directly to Stephen's commissary. So you will find that on Kathleen's page as well. Amy says, I'm worried for Al and Dolores. Someone posted something about them having $50K in their safe in their kitchen. If that's true, someone just broadcast that to thousands of people. Yeah, both Dolores and Barb have safes that cash is in. That was an article, and but it has been said over the last 3 years. People talk about, you know, Barb will, when she denies she has stolen money, she'll say, it's in my safe. And it's like, oh. So, but that's from the money talking about there. And actually, it's not there. So I don't know why people keep saying that that money is in there. Because Kathleen took Stephen's share. At least that's what I was told. So that's from the original GoFundMe. So, and the original GoFundMe was to be split equally between the two guys. So when Kathleen took over Stephen's case, she got his share. And so the money that's left is supposed to be Brendan's share. But what I was told is that it was in an account that had Dolores, Chuck, and Barb on it. And money could not come out of that account unless 2 of the 3 signed and gave permission for it, because it was a way that the family was trying to prevent Barb from spending that money. And they were really afraid that Scott would buy a new truck with it. Then Barb started a new GoFundMe, and I know for a fact she has taken money out of that. But she took money out of it because at one point she thought there was a good chance Brendan was coming home, and she wanted to excite his supporters. So she went out and bought a TV and a video game system and then took pictures of it that she then sold to TMZ. So I know she's taken money out for that. Whether or not she's taken other money out, I don't know. People replying. Lori says, I still think the ex-boyfriend of Teresa is the guilty one. Maybe others were involved too, but I think he did it. I think the only thing that Ryan Hilgas is guilty of is the RAV4. The helping law enforcement get access to the RAV4 to then plant it at the salvage yard. But that's my opinion. Jess says, I can't think of who Dolores is. Dolores is Stephen's mother. Brandy says, according to the Waupun inmate rule, Stephen can only spend $42 at a time on his canteen order. There is no limit as to how much he can have in his account. Thank you, Brandy. Lori says, no, I don't want to leave this group. I like it here. It's fine. You don't have to leave. So Alan says, I didn't say I didn't believe you. I asked, why should we believe you? I wasn't trying to be cheeky in my question. No worries. quite easy to get lost in who to believe and who not to. Sorry if I offended you. It wasn't meant that way. No offense taken. I've a strong backbone what I'm looking for, but I get a lot slung at me. So I'm tough, Alan. So no, I wasn't offended, and I totally understand not knowing who to trust. Trust me. Oh, now I'm saying trust me. My making a murder journey is, I was friends with Carla, and then Carla screwed me over, and I was friends with Barb, and then Barb screwed me over. So I've been duped myself, and hard to know who to trust and who to believe. I mean, I've been to Barb and Scott's home. I wrote an article at one point on how Scott is innocent, and I felt bad for him. So I totally understand. I've been around a couple years, so that's how I got to the point where I'm at. And everybody has to take their own journey and decide things for themselves. So, and that's why also in this group, I don't tell you where you can or can't go. I get it when people want to be a part of those Guilter pages. It's not for me. I'm not in any of the guilty pages. I do not have a fake Facebook account to go creeping around, but also I don't really need one because I get people send me screenshots of all the time. So I don't have to go into them, just like all those people. Carla's got people that are in here right now watching this that are going to report everything back to her. Nothing is kept completely private, and everybody's spying on everybody else. So I don't care if you're in guilty groups, that's your, or Carla's groups, or that you want to give her Christmas thing money. That's all. You guys can all do whatever you want. I'm just telling you my opinion on things and what I've learned and what I know, and you do what you like. The only time that we do for sure boot you from here is if somebody sees you in a Guilter group saying that Steven's guilty, then we're going to boot you, because we have no interest in Guilters here. We're not going to argue that. So, but we're not going to fault you for being in those pages just because you're in there. The other pages, the family pages will do that to you. We've had over all the years, Carla herself personally will message people and tell them to leave our groups. And then we'll punish you if you don't. We're not going to do that. I don't care if you're in Carla's group. I don't care if you like Carla. You can like Carla. So Amy says, I suss CC out before I join this group. Go with your gut feeling. Ellen says, I'm Scottish, so maybe I worded it wrong, LOL. No, Ellen, you didn't. You worded it just fine. It's all good. Don't worry about it. John says, just read the Reddit post about Bobby's internet history and the convenient timing of it all. Very disturbing and very obvious it was him doing the searches. Yeah, is that the one where it's showing that Teresa's here on X day and the computer is scrubbed for the next day or whatever, that it's so showing that every time Teresa was there in those last couple of months, that's what Barb had erased off the computer. And it's also it's being done on weekdays, and Barb's husband no longer lived at the trailer, Tom Yonda. So he's not at the trailer. Brian Dassey worked and stayed mostly at his girlfriend's place and only, stopped home for clothes or eat or whatever. Blaine and Brendan are in school. Barb's at work. So who else did it? That's why it's laughable to me that people will try and say that Steven would have access to do that when A, Barb locked her house. B, the computer was password protected. See, Stephen had his own computer and internet access. So if you're going to look up this disgusting stuff, wouldn't you just do it at your own house? Why would you go into Barb's house to do it, knowing that Bobby is home because he works the night shift? So Bobby is at the trailer somewhere, whether or not he's sleeping or whatever. Now, I'm going to assume that if you're looking these kinds of things up, you may be masturbating at that time. So again, so is he just going to go there and masturbate at Barb's with Bobby there when he's got his own internet and computer next door, and Jody's in jail, so she's not home. So it's not like Jody's going to walk in on this. Unbelievable to me. Robin Ashley says, was there something that got denied last Tuesday? I read online, but I don't know if it was from 2017 or 2018. Nothing was denied. Kathleen will be filing December 20th. Carrie says, you know what upsets me the most is why didn't Dolores have all those necessary bathroom fit outs before? Dolores obviously needed them. There's no way the family couldn't pool their money together to make that happen. Sell one of the many toys. It's heartbreaking. So that's something. I used to have an internet relationship with Kayla, who is Earl's daughter. And she is very attached to her grandmother, Dolores. And it seems to me that Kayla has good intentions on taking care of her grandma. Sorry, moderator thing. So she told me at one time that Dolores doesn't have air conditioning and never did, and that Dolores was miserable. And so I was like, okay, well, I have a window unit that's just sitting in my shed. You want me to bring that for your grandma? Because Kayla had said that she was trying to save money to buy her grandma an air conditioner. And this wasn't Kayla manipulating me to get me to do an air conditioner thing. You know, she has no clue when she's talking about that I'm going to turn around and say, hey, let me get an air conditioner. But she said that she had told both Chuck and Earl forever to get grandma an air conditioner. Nobody did. Nobody cared. So I totally get what you're saying, Carrie, that these things should have been done for Dolores forever ago. But it's being done now because they're putting on a show. Look at these things we're doing for Dolores now. Julie says, in the CASO files, when searching the newer building, they found 2 police badges, one for Manitowoc and one for Green Bay. Isn't that creepy? I believe it was Chuck's desk, but not sure. What do you think? Oh, I don't know about that. Yeah, that is weird to find 2 police badges. Renee says, why isn't he in prison for his computer activity? Because they need Bobby to be their star witness that Stephen did this. So in return for Bobby saying whatever they needed him to say, they would look the other way on the computer stuff. So that is also showing that even if law enforcement is going to say they don't think that Bobby is the killer, you're letting this sick, depraved, sexual deviant free. So you're either letting a murderer go or, you know, this sexual deviant who's looking up murdered children. Jeffrey says, does Bobby and Scott still have their own Facebook page? I don't know about Scott. I know Bobby deactivated his. But I don't know about Scott. I haven't heard anything. Miley says, correct. Killing an animal and a person are two different things, and young kids do dumb shit. And Stephen took the fall for the person that tossed that cat into the fire. Yes. But Stephen was he was an active participant of it, you know? So like, if that was something that happened when I was there, I'd be absolutely fucking not. You're not doing that. I would have grabbed the cat. I would have been telling these people off, but Stephen was a part of that, laughing and catch the cat and dump the oil on him. But he's not the one that threw the cat in the fire. But he's just as guilty, in my opinion. But Stephen admits it and takes the punishment for that. That's what you have to understand about Stephen is he's done dumb shit, but he owns up to it. You know, so like when they broke into the bar and they stole sandwiches and rolls of quarters or whatever, he admits it. His cousin, when he chased her and pointed a gun at her, he admits it. You know, so he admits the dumb shit he did. So, but none of that dumb shit equals I'm going to kill some random girl for no reason. Matt says, why doesn't Bobby visit Brendan after all these years? He does visit Brendan when his mom makes him go. So it's typically like Christmas. Bobby goes. Claire Louise says, hey, Jax, the Wilsons here in the UK. We heard Barb had asked Brad to look at her computer and asked Brad if everything would be permanently gone. Is this true? Yes, there is Kathleen has an affidavit for that Brad, she did ask Brad about getting that computer wiped. Jill says, just jumping on, what do you think about the guards treating Stephen different now and taking his letters? I discussed this at the beginning, but I understand that you came in after that. They're just following the rules. This is not anything targeting or mistreating Stephen at all. I know that some of his fans might go, you're being mean to my guy, Stephen. But no, the rule is you can only have this many letters in your cell at one time. And there's been a lull since Making a Murderer 1 came out. And now when Making a Murderer 2 comes out, he's getting a ton of letters again. So no, you can't have all those in your cell. And the other thing to think about is it is a safety issue for Stephen. Because if other inmates see that he's getting special treatment, he's now going to get targeted. Hey, superstar, why do you think you're so special? You know, so he's not being abused by the guards. It's just the rule. Kristen, I am still live. It is my time, 4:13 p.m. Rebecca says, Jax, did you think Bobby was a suspect before Kathleen became Stephen's lawyer? I'm trying to remember what my order was. No, I think my first thing was Ryan Hilgas. I really thought something was up by when you see Ryan Hilgas and Michael Hallbach, in Making a Murderer 1. And so I really suspected Ryan Hilgas. And then my next one was I really thought something was up with George Zipper, you know, that I really believed that she went to the Zipper's house. Well, what I had believed is that she had gone to Zipper's, or she was supposed to go to Zipper's second and couldn't find it. And then went to Stevens and then went back to Zipper's. And that I believe that George Zipper, because he's just a drunk rage maniac guy, that because I believe that her going there was a hustle shot, that she was going to take a picture of Jason Zipper's car so that George Zipper had no idea that Teresa was coming, and that she then when she got there, George Zipper's wife, I can't remember what the wife's name is right now. She was out gardening when Teresa got there, and then she told Teresa the car is like, it was like behind a garage or something, around a building or something she had to go to. So I had thought that George Zipper then didn't know she was there, saw her, and just shot her for being on his property, trespasser, because he even says to the police at some point that that he wanted to press charges against on Teresa because she trespassed. And he said something about, and if she comes on my property, I'm going to feed her to my dog. I was on the Zipper rabbit hole for a while. And then just everything was pointing to Bobby. So, yeah. Tiffany says, I got the new book. I had an Amazon Kindle credit, so I actually got it free. I need to start reading it now. What I have said about the book, that Wrecking Crew book by John Farrick, I've said this before, that I do not promote any of the other books because I do not like people who are just making money off of Stephen. And any of these people who are selling books should be giving a portion to Stephen. I'm sorry. But Wrecking Crew, John Farrick had he's got Kathleen Zellner's participation in it. So, and he really did write it in such a way that it's easy to follow. So for people who have not been here for the last 3 years following the case, or people that have been here 3 years who I have forgotten so much that, because when I first got involved in this, I researched everything. I knew so much stuff, and I don't now. I've forgotten a ton of it. So it's a good refresher thing. So I do recommend people get that book. Thick Skin. Thank you, Christy. Katie says, sorry, missed your comments while getting kids ready for school. We'll rewatch after. Okay. Alan says, just for the record, I'm not in any guilt or groups. I totally believe in Stephen and Brendan's innocence 100%. No, yeah, I get it. Alan, no worries. Yeah, I'm not in any guilt or groups either. And we still have guilters trying to join this page constantly with their real name. And then, of course, they do get in with their fakes because I have a life and I'm not going to try and follow all their fake names too. Dustin says, is Kathleen still filing something December 20th? Yes. If so, can you explain exactly what she's filing? It'll be every time she files, she's got to show something new on why Stephen should be getting an evidentiary hearing or a new trial or whatever. So this filing on the 20th, we'll be learning something new that we haven't heard yet. Because every time she files something and then they shoot it down, so then she's got to, start again. Claire says, why don't these people take the brain fingerprinting test and prove their innocence if they haven't done it? Stephen and Brendan are 100% innocent. Yeah, I know. They offered to do it for free. Heidi says, the new book is incredible. I read it in one day and was stunned at it all. Yeah, I did too. Because I wanted to make sure that I could discuss it. And so I read it all the way through. It was pretty much I knew most of what was in there. There were a couple things I didn't know. And Rose is saying which book, and it's Wrecking Crew by John Farrick. And it's got Kathleen Zellner on the cover. Leva says, why 20th December? Did KZ want more time? Can't she file? Well, I always say not a lawyer. I don't know all this legal stuff. I can't follow it. But there's always, you have 90 days, you have 30 days, you have blah, blah, blah. So that's why it's the 20th. And yeah, extensions were filed for whatever reasons. So Kathleen has filed extensions, the state filed for extensions. And that just seems to be our legal process, period. So like another one of Kathleen's cases, Kent Pellegrini, that I advocate for, and I run Kent's page. Kent, it's been, extended, and he's like furious and livid. And for Kent doesn't, most wrongfully accused, don't have what Stephen has. Stephen has the benefit of making a murderer that is telling, even though the documentarians are making it from we're not picking one side or another type thing, but it's telling Stephen's story. Meanwhile, Kent has been in prison for 2 years and nobody's hearing his side of it. So all people know is he's in prison for this alleged crime. And he's just like, he just wants people to know. And, and then it just keeps getting put off. And, so he had been so upset. And then I reached out to Zellner's office and I'm like, you guys got to do something for Kent because, he's extremely upset right now. And so Kent called me last week and said that he had talked to the office and they were going to allow me to release an affidavit from one of the experts in his case that will go to helping get out Kent's side. And so then when I talked to Kent, when he told me about that the office was going to send me this affidavit to go out, now he was calm and he was feeling good. And so he's going to be Paul Kalasinski going over that affidavit this holiday weekend, and he's gonna call me or write me sometime this week and tell me what are the bullet points from that affidavit for me to release for him that he wants out there. So it's the way our system is that these things get these constant extensions for whatever reason. The state files, if they're just trying to delay it, or Kathleen needs more time with experts or whatever, but it is so very frustrating. So yeah, the next date we have is December 20th, and Kathleen can file before that. She has up until the 20th, but chances are she's going to file on the 20th. It's right before the Christmas holiday. Typically when something gets filed, they drop it right before there's this weekend. So hopefully we'll be able to get access to this filing before the holidays. I'm going to look into a couple different ways on hopefully we can get it right away. Deanna says, Kayla was the one who made up stories on Brendan though, right? Yes. Kayla is the one that said that Brendan was crying and sad and losing weight and had confessed to her. But then when she was on the stand, she recanted. And I give that girl credit. Kayla and I do not have a good personal relationship now. We haven't spoken in a while. But I told her then, and I still stand by it to this day, that took balls to be on the stand and recant that. Kayla was just looking for attention. Attention is attention, and she wanted attention. So she made up that story about Brendan. And of course, law enforcement helped her in that story. So I feel bad for Kayla. Kristen says, when this case first broke in 2005, it was news everywhere. I said back then they weren't guilty. Anyway, with a family like that and law enforcement, they didn't stand a chance. Do you ever get to speak to either Stephen or Brendan? I used to talk to Brendan on the phone I was going to be added to his visitors list. Barb had told me on a Friday that I have her blessing, and she told Brendan that I could be added to his visitors list. And then on Monday, Scott had removed me from the group, and they have hated me ever since for whatever reason. I talk to Stephen occasionally, not very often. And I am not on Stephen's visitors list. Robin Ashley says, I missed my reply. My husband called. I don't recall what your question was. Lacey says, do you know who the lady Sarah was that was writing Stephen, and why is she and his ex Lynn sharing the letters? Well, for money. Sarah actually reached out to me, and she had said she doesn't understand why I defend Stephen, because she said that when she would talk to Stephen, Stephen would tell her that I'm a thief and not to follow Stephen Avery Project. And so I talked to Stephen about that, and he said that was stupid for Sarah to say, because all his phone calls are recorded, and he could just ask for the call to prove that he didn't say that about me. But what I said to Stephen is, I don't care if he did. And that's the thing that a lot of supporters don't understand, or fans, I should say, of me. I'm not here to be Stephen's friend. I am not here to have a relationship with the family. I don't care. If Stephen was to no longer call me, it's not going to change what I do. Just like for Brendan. Brendan doesn't call me anymore. It doesn't change my advocacy for Brendan, that I believe he is innocent. No different than all of you out here right now that you don't speak to them either. Does that change your feeling on Stephen or Brendan, that you don't talk to them on the phone or not on their visitors list? So I'm not trying to make friends out of this. Just the reason I got as involved as I did is how it all started, actually. Well, yes, I watched Making a Murderer and looked into everything, but it was what really kicked everything off for me is that Fassbender and Wiegert were going to be speaking at a law enforcement convention one town over from me, 10 minutes from my house. And I was like, no. So I scheduled a protest for it. And so that's the kickoff to everything for me. So when I started all that, I didn't speak to anybody in the family. So, Carla and Carla's minions who talk to Stephen are constantly, Stephen tells me, point blank, the chick, Tracy, the basically a lawyer chick who's not a lawyer. Stephen tells me Tracy is the one that talks the most shit about me to him. A lot. He says that's like all Tracy wants to talk about is me. Whatever. So all these people talk shit about me to Stephen, and they, want Stephen to cut me off or whatever, not talk to me. And if he does, he does. That won't change Stephen Avery Project. We're still going to operate as we always do. We believe in Stephen's innocence. We aren't here to be his friend. We are here to defend his innocence. But back to your thing on the letters is these people just want attention. I don't get them on why they would dupe Stephen, because both of those ladies make it out like they want to be romantically involved with Stephen. And Stephen is somebody who is desperate to be in a relationship. He wants to love somebody and to be loved. He wants a family. He's been robbed of that. He's basically been in prison since he was 22 years old. And so these women prey on that, and people always forget that Stephen, doesn't Stephen he's got just as low an IQ as Brendan, if not lower. So, not the brightest guy. And he just wants to be in love, and these girls trick him, and then they think they're all cool on the guilter groups, because they're not going to get anything from the fan groups. Well, another thing from the fan groups, though, is you have all these different ladies wanting to be Steven's number one girl. Just creepy to me. So they're not going to get far with fans because everybody wants to be Steven's girl. So they get farther with being a guilter. I saw a light flash. Oh, hold on. My dog's jumping at the door wanting to come in. Okay. What does Bobby's wife have to say about his history? Bobby was with Kendra, right? That's his wife, Kendra. He started dating her in high school. So, they may have had typical teenager together and breakup. I don't know. But yeah, so Bobby's wife, they started dating in high school. So who knows what Kendra knows? What is going on? I don't know why all of a sudden my iPad was going off with Siri. Okay. Kristen says, okay, star witness back then, but why hasn't Bobby get punished now? Everyone knows about it. I would think that the contents of that hard drive would be of great interest to the FBI. You would think so. But again, I think a lot of this is that thin blue line thing, where they're all going to cover. So, and they really should be thinking it. Instead, you're letting a sexual predator be free, and he's got children. Bobby has children. So, don't know if it necessarily means he would do anything to his own children. But now what happens, birthday parties or at the park or, you're letting this guy roam the streets because you're going to cover for corrupt cops. I don't know how these people live with themselves. Miley says, yes, he was. I had this conversation with someone on this page and she deleted the post. Steven did put gas and oil on the cat. And yes, he admits everything. I admire that about him. Yeah. Jeffrey says he was pretty much an open book. He gave the impression in MAM1 shows he's a very honest man. Well, and I've teased Steven about it on the phone too, of going, God, man, you just willingly talk to cops again, right? When you see him and everything, that he doesn't lawyer up. Or there'll be times when you've listened to interrogations with him, and he'll even say, my lawyer told me not to talk to you, but he still does. And these people have framed him before. He is, yeah. So he has never once said anything about being guilty to no one. There was one jailhouse rat that tried to say something, but that was proven not true. So he owned up to the other stuff he did. He did it. It's not cool. It's not cool what he did to Sandra Morris, even though she was a bitch. You don't point a gun at somebody, unloaded or not, because it was an unloaded gun. You don't point a gun at somebody, no matter what she did to you. But he admits he did it. Matt Clarkson says, another rumor was that Candy was setting up her ex Chuck with the camera pics of children to try and rid the boys from inheriting the yard. Yeah, there is so much stuff going on with Candy right now. All this stuff coming out. Reddit, the TikTok Manitowoc Reddit, I highly recommend people go and visit that. There's so many good investigative, reporters or whatever you want to call it over there. And feel free, if you go to Reddit and you find something cool over there, to share it here in Gossip. But we don't copy and paste it, share the link, because we want the original source to get the credit for where it came from. But so much about Kandi right now. And Chuck, and yeah, I was in looking up everybody's record stuff too, not Chuck, Earl. Yeah, that Earl was allegedly filming young girls, right? Yeah, in the bathroom. And Earl was hiding upstairs underneath clothes when law enforcement had come there. And then something that I had always wondered is Stephen, in his interrogations early on, talking about how Tammy Weber had told him that the police were setting him up. And I've always been, who is Tammy Weber? And now I believe, was it Reddit that is the first place that came out with this? Or was it the TikTok Manitowoc on Twitter? I don't know which one gets the credit for it. But that Tammy Weber's sister is Wendy Baldwin. Wendy Baldwin is that piece of shit from the sheriff's department who, there's so much that Wendy has done against Stephen. But one of the things I'm sure you can all remember is in MAM1, when the two people are filming and walking around the trailer, and she sees the letter on his computer desk about an Innocence Project dinner, and she's like, oh, guess he won't be going to that. And then she also said, should we collect his shoes in case there are any other unsolved crimes? That fucking bitch. So she's Tammy Weber's sister. Interesting. Heidi says, my husband has said from day one he thought it was Bobby. Tanya saying Joanne Zipperer. Thank you, Tanya. Matt says, Andy Colburn used to visit the yard regularly for parts and was an acquaintance of Chuck's. Is that true? I've heard something about that. I don't know, because things are so intertwined there, of this one knowing this one or related to that one and blah, blah, blah. And then one of law enforcement has their own competing salvage yard. I can't keep up with it. It's something, if somebody's out there, if you have a snow day, I would love if somebody makes a whole graph of all the players of this case and how they're all connected to each other, how this one knows this one, blah, blah, blah. San says, Steven said, get Wrecking Crew. Well, what he really said was, I think it's called Wrecking Ball. Haha. Rebecca says, wow, Bobby really did fly under the radar, didn't he? I never suspected him either. I thought it was Ryan Hilgas, and I guess it still could be. Everyone lost their minds about that computer and nothing would be on there, blah, blah, blah. But it really threw Bobby under the bus. This feels like a movie. It's so hard to comprehend it's real life. KZ is an absolute legend. Well, if this was a movie, I say you'd walk out. This is stupid. This would never happen. There's no way these people could frame him like they did the first time and that they'd be able to get away with it now a second time. There's just no way. This is all so dumb. And Ryan Hilgas and that thing, that's the whole thing that Kathleen has to show too in, is it Brady, Denny, I don't know, of showing these other suspects, of these other people that should have been looked at and not. They never seriously looked at Ryan Hilgas. Why not? He's the ex. So he's the ex. That's somebody, Thomas Pierce, her boss at the photography studio had said that there was a wedding that Teresa was supposed to shoot and she didn't want to go to it because Ryan Hilgast was going to be there. Thomas Pierce said somebody was harassing Teresa on the phone that she didn't want to speak to. Teresa was having sex with Scott Blodorn, which was her roommate and is Ryan's friend. So he could be upset that she was having sex with Scott. She was having sex with a married man and got into a relationship with that. Ryan could be upset about that. Ryan is who deleted voicemails. Ryan had scratches on his hands. Ryan moved into her house. There's so much there. And they never looked at him. And he's the ex. Most times when somebody is murdered, it's by somebody they know. They didn't look at Ryan. They didn't ask him his alibi. Nothing. They don't care. So, Caroline says, have you found Brad Dassey to be honest? Something sincere, honest, and open about him, in my opinion. Well, I know Brad is on this page. I don't know if he is currently. He does message me. What he says about the case, true. You know, he was asked to do that, and he did way back then before this case was famous. He went and told what he knew. You know, so he wasn't somebody who only came forward because of making a murder. He did the right thing in live time, you know, not just now. He also, I think it's horrible that they have ruined his relationship with his father, because Brad only ever defended Pete. I only met Pete one time, and Pete was a really nice man. That doesn't mean I know him at all, but in the day that I was with him, Pete was a very nice, quiet guy, but it was known Barb holds all the cards there, and that Pete has to do whatever Barb and Scott tell him to do, or Barb will cut off his access to Brendan. So it's really sad to me that Brad has been separated from his dad and that they fill Pete with lies, saying things that what they allege Brad has done, and he hasn't. And that's what I have to say about that right now. Lori said, just started Wrecking Crew, really good so far. Claire says, my husband said it could be as late as next summer for a retrial. Is that correct? Can the state keep putting it off? Well, because there's always now, when Kathleen files on the 20th, then the state has X amount of days till they respond to that. And then the court will have X amount of days to respond to that. And then Kathleen rebut that and state rebut that. It's just this endless circle. You know, there is no speedy retrial. So yes, it could be as late as next summer. Just our system sucks. We need criminal justice reform. Big time. Amanda says, Barb probably told him not to call you if you believe either Scott or Bobby is involved. Well, at that time, that was not the case. It was just stupid family drama, as always. That happened there, just stupid. Kristen says, what are your thoughts on Scott and his behavior, outbursts, etc.? My time with Barb and Scott was always that whenever you would call Barb, she has to put her phone on speakerphone, and Scott's right there to listen the entire time and put his 2 cents in. She called once. The only time she could talk freely about Scott is when she was deer hunting and she's in her deer stand and he's wherever in his deer stand. So that's when she called and talked about how she wants to leave Scott and move in with one of her kids and all that. And actually, she said that, and then that following Monday is when Scott cut me out. So I don't know if she told him anything of what we discussed, and that's what did it. No idea. But really don't care. Scott has a temper. When Brendan's conviction was overturned and there was a good chance that he was going to be set free, Scott threw a fucking fit and said there was it. If you're offended by language, sorry. But Scott said, if that fucking kid thinks he's gonna come and live in my fucking house and just sit home and play fucking video games all day, he's sadly mistaken. He needs to get himself a fucking job. And then he was also very livid because part of all that, when Brendan's conviction was overturned and he was possibly going to be getting out on bond, there's rules that are in place for that. So wherever Brendan was to be staying, there could be no firearms, no knives, that kind of thing. So Scott was livid that he wasn't going to be able to have all his weapons around him. So he said he was going to have Brendan, he was going to do something to force Brendan to violate his bond so he would go back into prison so Scott wouldn't have to give up his guns. Scott could care less about Brendan. They're just milking this for what they can. And Brendan doesn't like Scott either. When he talks to his mom, he wants to talk to his mom. He don't want to listen to Scott. And when his mom comes to visit, he wants to visit his mom. He doesn't want Scott there. And Scott never used to go. He only went after Making a Murderer when now they have to make a show. Scott's a hothead. And when you look at his record, he's got multiple batteries on there, 2 women. And then he also physically put his hands on his own mother. So, yeah, he's a hothead. Leva says, does Curtis visit Stephen in jail or does he stay away from the case now? Curtis doesn't have anything to do with the case. He's got 2 young kids and a wife and a job. And so he went back to, just doing his family thing. Deanna says, Lynn makes my skin crawl. I agree. Katie says, Bobby could have gotten immunity on the hard drive to give evidence in court. Yeah, it definitely was a deal. You say this and we'll do that. Caroline says, do you suppose Stephen is upset with Barb supporting Scott and Bobby not talking to KZ? Do they even speak anymore? I do not think that Steve and Barb talk currently, but I haven't talked to Steven. He called me the week after Making a Murderer came out. That was the last time I talked to him. So I don't know if he has spoken to her as of late. And all Steven just keeps saying that he always says is he's just following where the evidence goes, and he doesn't care if it goes to other members of the family. Why should he be sitting in prison for something somebody else did, no matter who it is? So BB says everyone has a past, but that doesn't make him a killer. Correct. Julie says that Dave Bagoda, or whatever his name is, said he and his wife saw Stephen at a gas station on that night. Now, if Stephen was honest enough to tell the world he peed outside, why would he hide the fact he went to the gas station? I think this Dave guy and his wife are truly mistaken about seeing him that night. Yeah, probably. But also something to remember is the first time Stephen was questioned on what happened on Halloween, he couldn't remember, for sure on what had happened that night. Was there a bonfire? Was there not a bonfire? So I don't know if we truly know what Stephen did that night, but we do have the records of Jody calling him those couple times on that night. So we know he talked to Jody. So, so he was busy raping and stabbing and shooting and chopping up and stoking a fire while talking to Jody about being romantic. Ooh, romantic. BB says, who is Candy? Candy is Earl's ex-wife and Kayla's mom. Jeffrey says, has Steve ever thought of running for mayor? He would be awesome. I doubt he's thought about that. Heidi says, yes, on Candy Weber TikTok Reddit. I was reading it last night. Oh, TikTok credit. Carrie says. Tanya says, did you just say that Tammy Weber and Wendy Baldwin are sisters? Yes, Tanya. That's what was on TikTok Manitowoc. Yeah. So that's where that connection comes in on who is this Tammy Weber who was telling Steven that the cops were framing him. And Wendy Baldwin was the one in there. Wendy Baldwin was also the one that was doing that flyover, that there's been people who have said that they think in that flyover that there's evidence that the RAV4 was not there when that flyover was done. And was Wendy involved in the first one at all? I can't recall that. But Wendy is the one that then talks shit about some other. Well, now somebody, Patty, one of the moderators, is saying TikTok said Tammy Weber is Candy's sister. I thought I read Wendy Baldwin. All right, so somebody look that up and give me a screenshot of that, of which one it is. Chrissy says, not only will Stephen will be going to a get-together, they will change the name to the Stephen Avery Innocence Project. Well, I've said he should own Wisconsin by the end of this. Wisconsin should just be changed to Avery Land. Because Innocence Project, while they do good things, I'm pissed at Wisconsin Innocence Project for dumping Stephen like that so fast, right away. All those people, Penny Bernstein from the first thing, all of them, immediately when the second thing went up, they all washed their hands of Stephen and went to he's guilty on this. What the fuck? That, so that pisses me off, because you should have looked into it, because you already, it would be one thing if these were totally different people that you would go, oh God, now a whole bunch of other people are going to frame him for something. It is the same people. They set him up the first time. So how can the Wisconsin Innocence Project just drop him without looking at anything? So Innocence Project, Wisconsin Innocence Project, you piss me off. BB says, what do you think about the lady that came forward saying she's seen Stephen at a gas station the day Teresa was killed? There's so many different reportings of things that I'm not sure. Because remember now, something else I always talk about. Ooh, and here's the screenshot of that. TikTok Manitowoc saying, why so hard to believe Tammy Weber aside from being Candy's sister? So Tanya, Candy's sister. Ooh. The fact that she gave cops details about the car being put on ASY by cops, that they checked out. Tammy also is the one telling cops Avery was grabbing at 13 and 14-year-olds, never investigated at all. That's TikTok Manitowoc Twitter, not the Reddit. But I know I read somewhere that she was related to Weber or Baldwin. Okay, I'm going to have to look into all that. But anyway, so the example I always use is the bus driver. The bus driver testified that she saw Teresa. No, she didn't. At least not that day. So I think there's a lot of not sure on all that. Andrea said Ryan moved into her apartment after she came up missing. Being an ex, that's strange. Well, also, the house that Teresa lived in is on her family's property. Her family owns this big farm. So yeah, she wasn't like right next door to her parents. It was like a quarter mile away from her parents' house, but it's still her family property that he then just moved into. Why? Huh? Yeah, I didn't get that. Garrett says, who are you? Just a supporter? Yes. Jeffrey says, can I see snow? Yeah, there's snow out there. We had a big snowstorm hit the other night. Garrett says, I hope he gets to see his parents. Me too. Cheryl says, that blue is a good color for you. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Emily says, I think Scott married her to stay close. Yeah, it's all, I don't know. Well, they had been having an affair for a while. So you got to remember that Scott is cousins with Barb's second husband, Tom Yonda. But I don't think they had a close relationship. So I don't know the full details of them being cousins other than they were cousins. So, but they had been having an affair for a long time. And I know that some of her sons didn't approve of that. All right, I'm trying to scroll. BB says, and Barb let Scott talk about Brendan like this. Scott beat up 2 of her kids. Scott physically put his hands on both Brian and Blaine and kicked them out of the house. And she just let that happen and stayed with the guy. There is no way. I have a son. He's 25. There is no way any guy I'm with, he puts hands on my kid for whatever reason, and I don't care, and my son's not like that, but say my son was mouthing off and being a dick. You're not touching my kid. And I'm not going to then marry or remain married to somebody who put their hands on my kid. No way. And or talk about them this way. Angie says, I really wish bad stuff on Scott. Hopefully Zellner will help that along. Miley says, Scott's a disgusting human being, and Barb is also letting him treat her child that way. Ugh, makes me sick. I defend and fight for my kids to the end. Exactly. That's your job as a parent. I'm not even going to say a mother, because father, mother, whichever you are. Paul
Kalosinski.
You're supposed to defend your children. Heidi says, I've seen Scott's record. It's really scary. Yes. BB says, for Barb to stay with that kind of man and basically is choosing him over her son, you should have sons, is absolutely sickening. Sand says, Scott was so funny in MM2 when he's acting like he really cares about Brendan. Yeah, I know. Okay. Christy says, I wonder where Jody is now. She was arrested not too long ago, another DUI, so I don't know if she's in jail. Luann, I'm so sorry, Jax, but I can't take you seriously without one of your hats, LOL. Well, this was a spur of the moment performance. I wasn't expecting to go on today. So maybe for the next one, whether it's I go see Zellner on Thursday on a talk show, or I'm going to see Brendan's lawyers on Saturday, I'll come on to tell you guys about that kind of stuff. Maybe I'll wear something special for you guys, and don't get all pervy, people. I don't know how to say your name, Neetha. Can they force Bobby to take the test that Stephen took in MAM2? No. It's not admissible. Lie detector test, that brain fingerprinting thing isn't admissible, and you can't force anybody to take that test. Roll says, do you believe Bobby when he says to Dietering he didn't watch Making a Murderer at all? I don't. But then again, how do you know Bobby is lying? If he's moving his mouth, then he probably is. He absolutely had to watch it. I would believe Dolores if Dolores said she didn't watch it. I would believe Alan if he said he didn't watch it, because they don't have Netflix. They don't have internet. they probably don't have cable. You know, they're simple folk. They don't care about those things. I know it's been said that they've been given DVDs of it. So maybe they have. So I'm not saying they haven't watched it. I'm saying those are the only people that I would believe, family wise, if they said they haven't seen it. Everybody else, you know, they watched it. Even if, no matter which way it is for Bobby, all right, and I believe Bobby is guilty, but even if Bobby is innocent, you'd watch it because you want to see how you're going to be portrayed and what Zellner's going to say. So he absolutely watched it. Michelle says the Innocence Project was probably made to drop them or lose funding. I see the government doing that. True. Debbie says, and this Weber girl says Stephen was set up. Yeah, it's one of the things that Stephen talks about in the interrogation is that Tammy told him that cops were setting him up. So, and I've just always wondered all this time going, who is this Tammy chick? And then I've thought about it at times asking Stephen on the phone, but remember now, all his phone conversations are recorded. So I try not to really talk to him about the case when I'm on the phone with him, because I'm not sure, you know, I don't want to say or have him say something that's going to screw up his case, you know? So yeah, I'm nosy and I'm curious. I would love to, you know stuff. But I care more about protecting Stephen than I do about me getting, you know, tips or whatever. So yeah, Debbie, he has said from the start, you know, way before Making a Murderer came out or anything, he has been saying they're setting me up, and Tammy told me they were setting me up. Miley says, oh, hell no. Someone puts their hands on my kids, I'm getting my bitch on. Mitha, if that's how you say your name, says, why wasn't the coroner involved? Can't they dissect the case and free them based on that? The coroner. So there is another case, the Ricky Hochstetler case. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Tanya, I don't know if you're still on here watching. I know Tanya Henry, who's on here. I believe she's somebody that follows the Hochstetler case very closely. I know just bare minimum on that case. But I think Tanya is the go-to on that. So Ricky was a young guy who was walking home at night, and he was hit and run. And story, there's a bunch of different theories, but there was a Manitowoc Sheriff's Department party happening at some bar or whatever. So it has been said that the hit and run itself was done by somebody from Manitowoc Sheriff's Department. And then when sheriffs were responding to the call of this kid on the road, he was run over again because they weren't paying attention where they were driving. So then when that coroner got to that scene, they told her to make sure that her report says the kid was already dead when he was hit the second time. And her response was, if that's what my tests show, then that's what my report will reflect. So now when the Stephen Avery, Teresa Hallback thing happens, they know that coroner is not going to play ball and say what they want her to say. So they stopped her from going on that scene. And she is an elected position. That is her job to do. There was no conflict for her. She was not part of the Penny Bernstein case. All these other people were, and they were on the premises, but they blocked her. And it's because they knew she's not going to lie for them, that she was an honest person. And her job as coroner is to work for that victim. What happened to that victim? She is not there to protect law enforcement. She is there to speak for the victim. And that's what that coroner does or did. And so they blocked her from this because they knew she was not going to lie. Making a Murderer 2 really made me feel for that coroner, because I had always known that with the Ricky Hochstetler thing, but I had never seen the coroner speak and all that. And to see her in that, my heart broke for that woman, because that's one of those people that we need. Isn't it weird that I tear up at stupid shit like this, that this is getting me emotional to think of that? But had it been one of my family members, I want somebody who is going to tell me what happened to them, regardless of what it is, whether or not it's police or, whatever it is, that this person is going to tell me the honest truth of what happened to my loved one. And because of these corrupt fucks, sorry, I have bad language, they cost Wisconsin a trustworthy person to do that job. And that woman was good at her job. And that's been taken from her. And imagine the fear she has. To this day, she has to fear for her life. Because if they framed Stephen that first time and they did this the second time, who says they won't do something to her? Because they get away with it every time. So who says they won't just all of a sudden she'll go missing? But also, to her credit, like I talked about Brad or talk about Stephen, they said this stuff prior to Making a Murderer. They're not just coming forward now because there's fame and fortune involved. They said this back then when their lives are in danger to say those things. Kristen says, wasn't there child porn on Bobby's computer? Yes. If there was, star witness or not, the FBI would be very interested in the contents of that hard drive. And I don't know why nothing ever happened with that. Anne says, hi, Jax. Just wondering, did you talk about going to the Averys at the start of this video? Did I see a video of you going there, or was it just a dream? I'll just catch up if you talked about it already. The videos that are on here are old. I do plan on going up there soon. I'm not saying when, because obviously I think Scott and Bobby are guilty. If they're guilty, who's to say then I'm not in danger if they know I'm going, right? So it's in my best interest to not let people know for sure when I'm going. I'm not going to visit the salvage yard this time, though. I've done the salvage yard. Now I'm going to go to the other places to just show you guys that stuff. So, but no, I have not done that as of yet. Carrie says, Candy is friends with Andy Colborn. Earl used to be too. Thank you, Carrie. Laura says, when Stephen and Brendan, I'm assuming they can sue for a lot of money. Or Laura, are you saying when they're free? If proven that somebody else did this and that they were framed, they'll have a case. But again, our system sucks. Because even look at Stephen in the Penny Bernstein case. He was out for 2 years and the depositions were just starting. You know, and I don't know how long that case would have taken. You know, so, you know, there's so many people that think that if Stephen and Brendan are free, they like walk out and are instant millionaires. It's not going to happen. Even again, look at Stephen with the Penny Bernstein case. He was living in an ice shanty because he had no money and no place to live. So they're not going to walk out and get instant money. Scott throwing the fit about Brendan not coming to live with them. He's going to get a job. These men can't go get jobs. Again, safety issue. Because no matter what Kathleen proves, there are going to be idiot guilters who say that Bobby or that Brendan and Stephen are killers. And so they're at risk of somebody trying to hurt them. So Brendan can't go work at McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? You can't. It's a safety issue. They can't just go work. So they have no way to make money. And if they're going to do a civil suit, they can't go on a talk show tour and get paid for talking because there's a civil suit. So, and then there's just other things involved in that. So there's going to be no immediate money. People replying to each other. Will says, the cops were very interested about the stuff on the computer in the beginning of the case. It was even in the newspapers. As soon as they found out it didn't point to Stephen, it suddenly became not of evidentiary value. Excellent point. That's the thing. Yeah, you can't prove that Stephen did it, so we don't care. That's the thing. They weren't looking for evidence. They were looking for how they could push their narrative that Stephen was guilty, period. And if something didn't fit that narrative, it got dropped. Heidi says, I was reading on the Hostetler case. Can you say shady? Everything's shady up there. So look at the Hostetler case. And then there's Carmen Boutwell, Boutwell, right? And that's also connected into this case as well. So what the hell is going on up there? I know there's corruption everywhere, but this little area just, Laura says, when Stephen and Brendan are released, I'm assuming they can sue for their wrongful imprisonment. All right, I just covered that. And I've already been on for over 2 hours. So Holly says, wish she could have come forward sooner and spoke up about not being allowed there. I think nothing really stops her from speaking up because she spoke up about it back then. But, in the meantime, now all these years, she's not going to go out and really talk about it because she fears for her life. And I get it. San says, oh, my goodness, they all need to get out of Wisconsin when they get out. Yeah, but if Al and Dolores aren't going to leave Wisconsin, Stephen won't leave. Stephen just wants to, live out the rest of his parents' days with them. And same thing for Brendan. Brendan's going to just want to be with his mother, depending on what actually comes out, on what Barb's involvement is. Kristen says, it's the law that an ME be present on all body recoveries. Without her there was no chain of custody for those remains. But there's not really any remains. That's the thing. There was hardly anything that was found at Stevens. There's some bones that they just happened to not take a picture of any bones they found. They'll claim that they didn't take the pictures of the ones they found at the burn pit because of Stephen's dog Bear was there and that they couldn't take pictures. Bullshit. Did they take pictures of, wasn't it the pelvis, part of the pelvis that they found in the quarry? Pictures of that. Oh boy. Oh, sorry, political text. So, and all they have on the bones that they have is that using Karen Hallbach's DNA, that these bones are consistent with the what's the word I'm looking for? The female line of her family. There has been nothing that says conclusively that the bones are Teresa's. So this case is just crazy. Christy says, right, but Steve is going to have to move and go into hiding so he doesn't get caught up in any more BS. Yeah, I hope him and his family are able to just disappear into some woods somewhere with a lake, and, you know, that him and his dad can fish and they can garden and Steven can work on cars and just live their quiet life somewhere. And I hope the fans of Making a Murderer let them be, you know, that they can just disappear. Angie says, your language makes me feel at home. Thank you. Yeah, I have a really bad potty mouth. I'm not offended by language, and I know a lot of people are, and I know by me talking like that, you know, there's people that say I lose credibility and all that, so I try not to. Debbie says, yes, and no photos of area. Right. And that's protocol. You take pictures first, and you set down those little flaggy things, right? Number here, and here's where this is, and you take pictures. You don't touch anything. Sorry. Turning off the sound on my phone. And actually, I need to wrap this up soon. Holy cow, I've been on here for 2 hours and 16 minutes. Luann says, I live in Wisconsin. Not the whole state is bad. I love it here. I spent my summers in Coudray, up by Hayward, on the Chippewa flowage. I love Wisconsin. You know, I know Wisconsin doesn't typically like us fibs. I'm in Illinois. In Wisconsin, people call us fibs, which stands for fucking Illinois bastards. And they call us flatlanders. Because, yeah, people from Illinois go up to Wisconsin on weekends and summers and such. Wisconsin's beautiful. I have so many fond memories of my childhood up on the Chippewa flowage up in Coudray and going into Hayward and stuff. So I don't fault all of Wisconsin for this. And Manitowoc, you know, the times I've been up there, it's a nice area. Just these people are corrupt. Need to go. Mitha says, absolutely, that poor woman, she was already threatened. Yeah, I feel for her. What are you doing, dog? Roll says, the coroner would have started with taking pictures of how the bones were distributed when found. Probably these photos would have proved they were dumped there. The MCSD, however, shoveled everything before taking any picture. Didn't want the coroner ruining that. I know. And then you see the pictures of when they're sifting through bones. And isn't it Fassbender or Uyghur, or is it even both of them, are going through them? It's like, why are you an expert that you're going through the bones? That's just weird. You know, so you're going to force Brendan into a false confession, and you're going to sift through stuff for bones. Oh, boy. Fight going on there on my phone. San says, this Making a Murderer series has scared these guys. They are so corrupt, and they've gotten away with it previously. Now it's not so easy. Good. You know, I hope other people in Manitowoc are safe. You know, Roll says, even Earl has been proven to commit perjury today. Wow. Anne says, thanks for the reply. Be careful if when you do go out there. Cuss Road and the dead end would be good to see. That's where I'm going to go. There's very little on it, even in Making a Murderer 2. You'd want to have someone or a gang of people with you, I guess. I go back and forth on when I want to go. If it's better for me to go on a weekday when people are supposed to be at work, or is it better for me to go on a weekend when my boyfriend could go with me and he is an NRA instructor with his concealed carry? And I know that sounds so awful of me wanting somebody with me who is armed. I like laugh at myself that I'm like being a paranoid freak. So just suck it up there, just go up there on a weekday. So I don't know. But things have been busy for me right now. And then now I've got and I'm going to have to, like I said, I got to get off here, and Paul's now called me 3 times and find out if going to this thing to see Kathleen on Thursday, and if, and then I'm going to see, Drizzen and Knight Rider on Saturday afternoon. So I would not be going this week. Amber says, just seeing this was live. What did I miss? Oh my God, my phone's going crazy. A lot, and I'm not going to rehash it all because, all right, we're at 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I'm going to end this in 10 minutes, regardless of where I am in the post here. Because, oh my God, I'm droning on and on and on. And it's another thing that the guilters rip on me for, that I sit here talking forever. Mitha says, let us all be thankful in social media. Without that, they would have no justice. Yeah. But even with that, I mean, because look at what Making a Murderer has done for Stephen and Brendan's case, but they're still in prison. So it's at least giving them a shot. But it's still, Making a Murderer came out 3 years ago, and they're still in there. Holly says, I thought with the documentary and all the publicity in KZ that people involved would start to talk or slip. They have. We don't know all that Kathleen has. So I'm sure she's got more affidavits and such from people. So it'll be real interesting what we find out on the 20th. BB says, it's sad too, because all the money that is being donated to Stephen and Brendan, Carla is using to go out to Red Lobster and buy stuff for herself instead of getting a job and working. Well, and Carla does have a job. But the thing that Stephen has said is then get another one. You're free. You have the opportunity to go work for your money. Why should they be able to take Stephen's money? Kristen says, it's a good old boys club. Everyone owes everyone. Goes back a long ways. That's why the corruption goes way up the chain. Think the Skulls movie. Oh, yeah. Secret Society. Which, that's been a rumor in Manitowoc, too. Mitha says, wasn't Barb using the money, hence while Zellner took it over? Well, Zellner took Stephen's share. Because obviously there's a lot of testing and stuff to do, and it costs a lot of money. While Kathleen has money from her cases, you shouldn't expect Kathleen to just want to pay out all this money for all these testings. So that's why I know there's people who go I don't want to give any money to his defense. Well, why should Kathleen have to cover all this cost herself? So again, supporters, if you want to help Stephen, help pay his legal costs, all these testings and whatnot, and then think of every time Kathleen or her people go up to Manitowoc, because her office, I don't know where her home is, but her office is right here by me. And so from my house to the salvage yard on a GPS says it takes 2 hours and 45 minutes. I drive a little fast. So think of her travel when she goes there, and you see her for Making a Murderer too, that she's got a car service. So she's paying for a car service and a driver, all that kind of stuff. There's just a lot of cost involved. So Zellner took Stephen's portion because there's stuff that needs to be paid. Amanda says, that place is incomprehensible. It's like the Deep South. That song, The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, goes over and over in my mind, LOL. I was just thinking of that song just like last week because I saw Vicki Lawrence on something. And it's always weird to me that Vicki Lawrence is the one that sang that song. BB says, asking for money to buy tires for her car and asking supporters to donate to her so she can have a night out. There are way too many people with fundraisers. We went over this at the beginning, and I hate talking about the fundraisers all the time. Carla's son, Randy, had a GoFundMe because he wanted his car fixed. Sandra has had a GoFundMe because her basement flooded. It's admins of Carla's have had GoFundMe because this one's medical bills or that one's medical bills. It's all these people that think supporters now, because they're attached to the case in whatever way, that now when something happens in their life, somebody else should pay for that. It's ridiculous. I keep going back onto that because it gets me all pissed off. Kristen says, that was my point about the ME at no chain of custody. Whatever was recovered was not documented properly, etc. All of it's screwed up. Because look at Sherry Culhane, that she was doing a training or whatever to students using the stuff from this case, the biggest profile case they freaking have. And so she contaminated it by sneezing and talking and all that stuff right into the stuff. She contaminated it. So none of that stuff should be able to be used. And she should know better. She's training other people how to do this stuff, yet she's contaminating stuff. All of this is a joke. 4 minutes left. Christy says, what are we all going to talk about once they get out? There will always be cases. I advocate for 2 more of Kathleen's cases. They're local. I'm sure there'll be others. And that's why also in gossip, you can talk about any case you want in gossip. On Stephen Avery Project, we keep that just Stephen. Once Stephen is free, well, then we'll move in, it'll morph into something else. Sean, have you started on Carla's Christmas card yet? Everybody else, don't look at the camera right now, except for Sean. Sean. Nitha says, you should run for DA. Me? No. I will, and I work in politics. I will never run for office. I am too polarizing. I am way hated by lots of people, and I'm good with that. I don't care. I'm somebody who right is right and wrong is wrong, and I am going to fight for what I believe in or stand up for those I believe in. I'm not the smartest person ever. I would never be able to learn the law, but I worked for the candidate for governor here who did win, and I did apply to be on his criminal justice reform committee. Now, I'm probably not going to get it, but that's something I would like to do. However I could, is try and work for criminal justice reform in some way. I would love to get paid for it. It would be nice to actually have a job, but it would also be something that I would volunteer to do. Don't tell J.B. Pritzker, my governor, that I would do it for free. But there is so much about our system that needs to get changed, and there is so much in prisons that need to be changed. So I would love to do something like that. Nitha says, New York State welcomes Stephen and Brendan with open arms. Well, I mean, I guess they could go to like Upper New York or what. They're never going to go to a big city. No way. Oh boy, that's something I'm going to have to deal with. Technically 1 minute. Let me scroll through here and see if there's anything. Oh, people talking about if I go up there to not go alone and be armed. Heather's got her concealed carry. I did take, since my boyfriend's NRA instructor and he teaches concealed carry class. So I did take the class, but I do not have my FOID. So I cannot have my concealed carry. I applied for my FOID and they cashed my money, but then kicked it out because my driver's license has always had my name misspelled, my first name misspelled, back from when I got my license when I was 16, and I never corrected it because I didn't think it was a big deal. And then when I filled out the application for my FOID, I spelled my name correctly. And so they kicked it for that the name didn't match. But it literally is, there's 2 N's on the end of my first name. My name is Jacqueline. There's 2 N's and my license has 1 N. That's, so they kicked it from that. And it's still nothing I've never fixed. And so I do not have my concealed carry, but I have taken self-defense classes. And my mouse is stuck as I'm trying to get over to my second screen here. I think my battery in my mouse is dying. All right, will you let me scroll now? All right. Well, all right. My mouse is now dead and it is 5:31. So I am going to let y'all go so I can call Paul back and then deal with the 32 messages I have. Oh, look at that. 32 Facebook messages and 32 text messages. So, all right. And all this stuff is going over here and I'm getting all flustered here on what's going on. Thank you everybody for joining me. Like I said, I'll find out if I'm going to see Kathleen on Thursday. And if so, then sometime Thursday, because it airs at 1 p.m. my time. If I go live and discuss that. Oh, look, and my boyfriend's just pulling in from work. So good time then too. So I'll go live and talk to you about that. And then also when I go see Drizzen and Night Rider on Saturday afternoon. That's at the House of Blues in Chicago and goes from, I believe it's 3 to 5. So, all right. Thanks. I'm out. If my mouse will work to end this. And it won't. So let me end it by using my laptop.